economic accomplishments. Again, one accomplishment every 36 hours of this presidency.
Next time you come in New York, you're going to have to go through the list with me. Ladies, thank you both very much, folks. Buckle up for a wild 2 hours.
Good evening, everybody. Our top stories: Republican candidates riding the Trump train to victories in the midterms. President Trump about to speak at a rally in Columbia, South Carolina. Speaking there for and campaigning for Governor Henry McMaster. We'll be bringing you all of President Trump's remarks live here tonight. Also, the president firing back at Dems who've been demanding, quote, due process for illegal immigrants crossing our border from Mexico.
Strong borders, we want no crime. The Democrats want open borders and they don't care about crime.
Summing up the divide between the Dems and the Republicans, we'll take up the due process debate and the fate of the Rhino Speaker Paul Ryan-backed immigration bill. Yes, there is such a thing. We just haven't seen it. And apparently, so has no one else in the U.S. Congress. Congressman Andy Biggs joining us here tonight, and left-wing bullies and thugs targeting Trump administration officials. Dem Congresswoman Maxine Waters calling for harassment and worse. Diamond and Silk join us tonight to talk about the dangerous war that has been waged rhetorically by the left against Trump supporters. And our top story tonight: while President Trump is on the campaign trail to push for a red wave in November, the rhinos in Congress are pushing for a so-called compromise leadership immigration bill, complete with amnesty for illegal immigrants, that would spell certain doom for Republicans in the midterm elections. Senior House Republican sources telling us they are skeptical that anything now can pass on the issue of illegal immigration and continued open borders. But that hasn't stopped Speaker Ryan, the lame duck speaker, planning to push ahead this week with a vote, we're told. Members working over the weekend on possibly including now a provision to expand E-Verify, the citizenship confirmation program necessary for employment under the terms of E-Verify. But we don't know what's included in the bill. A vote is expected Wednesday or Thursday. Imagine that, before lawmakers can read it and before they depart Washington for their 4th of July recess. Our first guest here to discuss the Republican leadership's focus on amnesty and immigration legislation that once again appears to be dead on arrival. Joining us tonight, Congressman Andy Biggs, Republican of Arizona, a member of the House Judiciary Committee, the Freedom Caucus, and great to have you with us, Congressman. I can't believe this. You all are still thinking about a bill that no one has read nor contributed to in any way, moving to the floor for a vote by the middle of the week.
Well, Lou, not only can you not believe it, but I'd like to say I can't believe it, but I think this has come to be expected by me, and I'm disheartened by it, but I think you're right. And it kind of goes contrary to exactly what President Trump has been saying about what I'm calling a virtual fence, where he says we're going to turn everybody away. This is a bill that's going to have the beginnings of general amnesty. Let's be honest about it. I mean, you're going to have the first wave is the DACA amnesty, the second wave is the second DACA amnesty, the third wave is their parents, and by then it'll be basically anybody else who's here. It's going to be a general amnesty, which is right out of the Democrats' playbook. It doesn't make sense, not good for the country, and certainly not good for those running as Republicans in this.
Is to be the golden age of authoritarianism.
So how is it that Paul
and he's a NATO ally,
Speaker, still in the office that he's resigned, who is going to lead you all, and I think that we've talked before with complete agreement, it's going to be disastrous for your conference across the country. I estimate as many as 50 seats lost in the House if they proceed against the will of the base, the very voters who put this president in office. And I don't hear this president saying to Paul Ryan, don't even think about it. Put it aside.
Well, what I heard last week was the president saying, you're wasting time.
Yes,
because nothing's going to get through the Senate anyway, and I agree with that. I don't understand why we're in the House. We're constantly put on the spot, so to speak, to say, okay, let's either vote for this or not vote for this, regardless of what the Senate's going to do. We know the Senate's not going to take it up. That's number one. But the more important thing is it's not in keeping what we promised the voters when they voted for us. So when you had crossover independents, crossover Democrats from the Rust Belt who said, I'm going to vote for this president, and the Republicans because they said they're going to no amnesty, they're going to have a tough immigration policy, which means the worker's going to get protected. It's a problem.
Wouldn't you believe that this president, of all people, would say, Paul Ryan, you're a lame duck, you are an absolute failure as Speaker. If you're going to put anything forward, you put forward my agenda, build the wall, let's have full funding for it. There's not a negotiation. This is the President of the United States speaking to the Speaker of the lame duck Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, and don't even think about crowding me on the issue of amnesty, because you know that is an absolute killer for the Republican conference in November.
Yeah, I think he's sent signals. I don't know what happens when they talk privately, but I can tell you this, that we need to do a simple bill, and that bill needs to be funding for the wall. That's what we promised we would do. Yeah. And if you think nothing's going to happen in the Senate, then let the Senate take the blame for not funding the wall. Let's fund the wall in the House. Let's get it over there as quickly as we can. And let's keep our promises for a change. I think that would be really, really solid.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. But you know what? I've heard some members of your conference, and I should say a few members of your conference, saying, well, we should just do a narrow DACA bill. I mean, I've actually heard these kinds of moronic musings from a few people in your conference who obviously still don't get it, that their futures, the rhinos' futures, are hanging by a very weak thread.
Yeah, you know, there's a part of our conference that really is very sympathetic to an open borders and an amnesty program. But I don't think that's the vast majority of our conference.
No, I don't either.
I think we could get the votes to build the wall, fund and build the wall. And that's, before you do anything else, let's just be honest, you have to get your border secured. Otherwise, everything else is just emotionally driven. So let's build the wall, let's provide for border security, let's get our boots on the ground, and let's get that done sooner rather than later. And
I'm going to repeat this. I've been saying it for almost 2 decades. There is an absolute, logical, straightforward formula. You cannot reform immigration law if you cannot control your borders. We are a long ways from being able to control the borders, and if any Republican president ever again accepts amnesty as a condition for a deal with the Democrats before border security and before securing that border, building that wall, as it's more than a metaphor. I mean, it's the reality that we've got to face. And you've got Manuel Lopez Obrador, the leading presidential candidate in Mexico, ready to go to the polls on July 7th, saying he wants to send more of his poor, more of his uneducated, more of his unskilled labor to this country, calling for a wave across that border. We have got fools in this country still in important positions within even this government of Donald J. Trump, who don't understand they're in a war here. It's a war against the left. It's a war against those who would run over our borders as if they were not even lines in the sand. And they want to debate. They want to confer. The reality is we're in a war, and we either win it or we lose this country's destiny.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's the deal. I think that's why the president said, let's just send them back. We're going to turn them back at the border. None of this phony bill only due process where we basically catch and release and say, show up some other time. Congress isn't funding the wall yet. So it's a virtual wall. He's saying just turn them back. That's what we have to do. And that's the first step, but we still need that physical barrier.
Listen to the reaction. Watch the reaction from the left, though, the Dems. They're having a fit because of the separation of families at the border involving some 2,000 people. It is an absolute microcosm of the experience under President Obama and former DHS Secretary Jay Johnson. To his credit, he may be the most honest man, the only honest man in the entire Obama administration, stepping forward and saying, we felt we had to do it, we did it, and I give him so much credit in the midst of this, acknowledging what the Obama administration did. But these these Democratic activists, having none of it, they are simply seeking political advantage rather than dealing with reality and the truth and dishonoring even the word truth by their very existence.
Yeah, Lou, you're talking about right now 50,000 plus people coming across our border that we're apprehending on a monthly basis. And, you know, the estimate's 2 to 3 times that actually get passed. But more than that, you get the unaccompanied minors and the so-called familial relationship people. That's coming through. We're going to see over 30,000 of those in the next 7 weeks hit our borders. Right. And what's supposed to happen at that point? And it's
well, we know what the Dems, because the president's right. He says the Dems want open borders. The Dems want them to pour across that border because they look at them as, and correctly so, as potential voters, soon to be, imminent voters. And the Republicans look at it as a violation of our sovereignty and our laws. Congressman Andy Biggs, we're going to hear more on this here tonight, I'm sure. The president about to start speaking in Columbia, South Carolina, there to support Governor McMaster. Andy Biggs, great to have you with us. We appreciate it as always, Congressman. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Lou.
And there you see the room there in West Columbia. We're awaiting the Trump rally there. And we're going to take a quick break. And when we do, we're going to be talking about a fellow who just won't go away soon enough, it seems. Rhino Jeff Flake. He's threatening to block President Trump's judicial nominees and to side with those countries like China, the European Union, Cuba, to name a few, in the battle over the Trump tariffs. This fellow is so flaky, he doesn't even understand who started this war and who's winning it. Ed Rollins and Michael Goodwin join us here next, and you're looking live right now at the Airport High School, as it's called, in South Carolina, where President Trump will be speaking in just a moment. We'll be bringing it to you, all of it live. Stay with us. We'll be right back with the president, a rally, and it doesn't get better than that. Stay with us. Cuba, the European Union against the United States. Listen to this fellow who I'm not going to even mention his IQ, but it's something of a challenge for him, I'm sure, just being even a senator.
I do think that unless we can actually exercise something other than just approving the president's executive calendar, his nominees, judges, that we have no reason to be there. So I think myself and a number of senators, at least a few of us, will stand up and say, let's not move any more judges until we get a vote, for example, on tariffs.
For example, on tariffs. Doesn't he just exudes importance and relevance, doesn't he? Of course, he's not going to be in that job very much longer. Joining us now, the Dean, Ed Rollins, Great America PAC Chairman, former Reagan White House political director, Michael Goodwin, Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the New York Post, both Fox Business contributors. Great to have you guys here. What do you think when you think of or see or hear Senator Jeff Flake?
Well, the first thing, of course, is he could not win a primary to keep his own seat, which is why he's not running. So he's retiring because he's been forced out.
Because he's been retired.
Secondly, there is this competition now among John Kasich, Bob Corker, Jeff Flake, to fill the McCain seat on the Sunday talk shows, where the only two requirements, you be a Republican, and the second is you attack the Republican Party. That's why you're there.
And particularly President Trump.
Right. And so that is the only reason they're invited.
But who's going to play the role of Lindsey Graham in that relationship with whoever emerges as the new John McCain?
Yeah, well, that's a tough one. Lindsey Graham, I have to say, though, has been, I think, more principled in the sense that he has picked his spots, whereas a Flake is just, he hates Trump. He's a hate Trump person. He should just, leave now. I mean, but this is his reward. You get on national TV.
Well, I agree with your point totally that he would have got clobbered in a primary, would not have been reelected, which would have been a great thing. I think back on the great senators that Arizona's had, and he certainly will go on the bottom of that ladder on any given day. But he's going to try and make it a little
trying to
tension
think
before he
of-
gets out the door. Well, I mean, Barry Goldwater, you have all kinds of them going way back. And it's,
That Goldwater comes first to mind, and then I'm thinking of those other greats.
but there were great.
No.
I remember them like it was yesterday.
Well,
let's just stop
Let's
with
talk about another seat, and that's good old Mitt Romney, who came out today. Here he is a week, what was it, 2 or 3 weeks ago, making nice with the president, and today comes out on the eve of the primary in Utah tomorrow and announces that he will just make it very clear that he'll be speaking out against President Trump. What in the world is going?
Well,
is Utah going to elect that mess?
I certainly hope not. This is a man who I have to remember after Ronald Reagan and George Bush were both presidents and had successful careers. One in 1994, he's running for the U.S. Senate against Kennedy, and he said, "I am not going back to a Reagan-Bush type of a. I'm going to be a different kind of Republican." And of course, then he switched on every major position he'd ever been on. He became a governor who basically was a one-term governor who abandoned the state for 340 days his last term. I'm not a Romney guy, and basically my PAC has endorsed his opponent, Kennedy.
Yeah, this guy Kennedy, what do you think?
Well, he's a conservative. He
Running against Mitt Romney.
Right, and my issue here is I hope Donald Trump does not do anything to help Romney, because Romney's never going to do anything to help him. He already has, but I was
going to say, it's a little late. He
still shouldn't be out there raising money for him right now.
This president is the nicest fella. I mean, he really is.
It's a very short memory.
Why? Well, no, he's got a terrific memory.
No, but I'm saying he takes these insults and he does forgive more than most politicians.
Yeah, and others he doesn't. I mean, I don't always quite understand his magnanimity on these things because I would just as soon he flipped Mitt Romney off the table. He is just an objectionable human being.
Yeah. Well, and Ed said he said he was going to be a different kind of Republican. He has been. He never won except for that race in Massachusetts. And
isn't that a funny thing? Romney running as a Utah Republican, his only credit is he won a Massachusetts race as a Republican.
But he also voted in the Democratic primary, and he also was an independent at one point in time. He reminds me of our former mayor, Michael Bloomberg, who now has definitely put himself in the Democratic column with $80 million being given to candidates. And if Romney was not running, I predicted he'd be giving a ton of money to Democrats, too, his kind of Democrats.
So what are we going to see? Are we going to see, again, a validation of the president's choices in these primaries? Are we going to see a strengthening of his view or a weakening, perhaps?
Well, look, I think certainly the approval numbers for the president among Republicans is sky high, 90% according to a recent poll, which you really
Getting
can't.
high marks for his handling of the economy. His approval rating is at or near all-time highs.
And look, it's going to vary state by state.
And above President Obama's at this point.
Right. It's going to vary state by state and candidate by candidate, but you see what he was able to do in South Carolina. So I think, yes, in general, his endorsement should mean a lot to Republicans on these ballots.
And a majority of the voters in America today say they're for the wall. In the CBS poll, which is amazing to me, which means in all this controversy that's gone on the other side and all the mistruths.
You're talking about the Dems, the left wing on the other side?
And some Republicans. But I think he's driven his message home. He's going to continue to drive it home. That wall is important.
Well, look at the message that's being driven home, though, from the left. The president said it. Open borders. Crime, bring it on. That's what the Democrats want. The Republicans are standing for law and order, for border security, and getting rid of crime. It is strange at that very moment. The Dems are embracing thuggery, the rule of the mob. This thing with the red chicken restaurant down in Virginia, that is. I mean, that's low-life stuff.
For a party and for a country that went through all of the exclusion of people in the South many, many years ago, the idea that you're going to take Sarah Huckabee and her family and throw them out of a restaurant in Lexington is outrageous. And the idea the most outraged person is the greatest racist, Maxine Waters, from California, who's out there basically spilling all this hatred.
She's trying to back off her remarks in which she was encouraging harassment, encouraging more of this ignorant approach. The other part of this is, it's good to know who doesn't want you in their restaurants, too. I mean, I wouldn't want to be in a restaurant, frankly, where I wasn't wanted. I certainly would not want to be in any establishment where I was not wanted. And if restaurants think that they're going to make political choices without economic consequence, they're damn fools.
Well, Lou, going back to the 90% approval that the president has among Republicans, I mean, no Democrat can match that anywhere. And so I think that coming up on the midterms, if they're going to fight Trump with this just pure hatred, with this kind of open borders argument, the Dianne Feinstein bill, just attack, without any plan, they're going to raise taxes. I think right now the Republican Party is looking pretty good for the fall.
Yeah.
Don't forget.
Well, they're looking good if you throw out Paul Ryan. Well, if you throw out the 25 rhinos who were ready to sign the discharge petition for amnesty and for open borders, they're looking pretty good. It looks to me like there's a great opportunity here for the president. And I want to get your view on it. And by the way, I've just received word the president's plane has not yet landed in Columbia, South Carolina, because of weather delays. It is still circling, awaiting the passing of the storm before he and his plane and the group land in Columbia. But we're waiting patiently, along with all of the folks that are gathered in Columbia, for the president. And as soon as we get word on his landing, we will bring it to you. Let's turn to the issue, to me, it's fairly straightforward, and that is, run as Republicans. The president has been saying it, and now the opportunity has presented itself. Run as Republicans, run on border security, run on building the wall, run on low crime, run on law and order, run on getting this country out of the mess that is the immigration system that's been contrived, by the way. And it's not an accident. It's not an accident of any kind that we have a mess, because that mess was created by the good offices of the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, Wall Street, and two administrations, the Bush administration and the Obama administration, who thought if they could ensnare all of the lawyers in the immigration process and build out what is almost 700,000 cases that are in backlogs in immigration courts, that they would win de facto. So far, it's worked for them.
Well, I would argue one other point there. Our base is a rural, suburban base. Sanctuary cities is something that's an urban Democrat idea, and we ought to just run against every single one of them. They want to put all these lawless people in there, not obey the federal laws of this country.
Well, that's fine. I think you're right.
I think that's a big issue.
By the way, the Trump party, the Trump Republican Party, is so much bigger than anything that is rural. Sure. It is from coast to coast, and when we look at what happened through the Midwest in the 2016 election, the potential for this president to carry his party in the midterm elections to an even larger majority is impressive. What is daunting is to think about what Speaker Paul Ryan represents as a threat to that conference. Ed, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Michael, thank you. Up next, the president. A massive rally about to get underway in South Carolina. We'll be right back. President Trump has solidified himself as the law and order president, cracking down further on illegal immigration. And in a series of weekend tweets, the president said, quote, "We cannot allow all of these people to invade our country. When somebody comes in, we must immediately, with no judges or court cases, bring them back from where they came. Our system is a mockery to good immigration policy and law and order. Most children come without parents. Our immigration policy, laughed at all over the world, is very unfair to all those people who have gone through the system legally and are waiting in line for years. Immigration must be based on merit. We need people who will help to make America great again." The sentiment echoed by former DHS head Jay Johnson, apparently the only honest guy who was part of the Obama administration. Listen to what the former DHS secretary said on Fox News Sunday.
We expanded family detention. We had then 34,000 beds for family detention, only 95 of 34,000 equipped to deal with families. So we expanded it. I freely admit it was controversial, We believed it was necessary at the time. I still believe it is necessary to maintain a certain capability for families. We can't have catch and release.
And I love that, not have catch and release. Joining us now, Fox Business legal analyst Greg Jarrett, author of the new book, The Russia Hoax, The Illicit Scheme to Clear Hillary Clinton and Frame Donald Trump, now available for pre-order, and we are getting closer and closer to the publication date, which is the beginning of next month. First weekend?
No, it's actually, well, it's mid-July.
Mid-July?
Mid-July.
Okay.
Well, we're just around the corner.
Yeah,
I know you're anxious.
I am anxious. I am so ready, as is America. And we commend the book to you mightily.
Thank you.
Let's start with the president's statement. What he's saying makes all the sense in the world.
Oh, it does.
It just doesn't happen to fit the law as it's currently written.
The only viable solution is a border that is impenetrable, which is what Donald Trump wants to do.
Build the wall.
And because it makes sense, Congress won't do it.
Yep.
Because that's their nature. Anything that's logical
but this is a Republican
solves
Congress.
A problem is anathema to Congress.
Yeah. But it's a Republican Congress run by the Republicans. It's
yeah,
a Republican...
but Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. I mean, you love Paul Ryan, and so
I got to tell you, the only thing I love about Paul Ryan is that he has resigned, and I lament the fact that he remains in that seat to still be a great danger to the Republicans in the midterm elections.
Oh, absolutely. I agree.
So let's get to what the president's saying. We got a backlog of over approaching 700,000 cases in our immigration courts. That's all contrived. That was part of a plan that was carried out through 2 administrations.
Sure.
Now, I mean, it would take a century at the current rate, at least a century, to go through those cases. If you double it, it's going to take forever. I mean, this is crazy what we're doing. How do we get to the point that Donald Trump is talking about, where simply you cross the line illegally, you committed a crime, now please go back where you came from?
Well, I would expedited removal. And instead of detaining a lot of people, pending an administrative proceeding and then sent back across. Forget the administrative proceeding, just send it back across.
Okay.
Now, you'll have a lot of howling by civil rights attorneys, but so what? They don't really have standing unless they get in front of somebody who is being detained. And if you don't detain them, then they don't have that opportunity.
We're a nation of laws. Here's our problem. That law says that we have to go through the falderall for a non-citizen who has violated the first law that's possible, that is crossing that border illegally.
Well, and they're committing crimes. The first time you do it, it's a misdemeanor. If you do it repeatedly, it's elevated to a felony.
Right.
And, you know, but we can't exactly clog all of our prisons and jails with all of the felonious people. The solution is to immediately send them back. And to his great credit, President Trump has expanded the expedited removal. It used to be under Obama and Bush that only within 100 miles and with the first 2 weeks, the president said, nonsense with that. We're going to get you anywhere.
So let me see if I've got this right. The president just simply ignores the law that requires the due process and says, you're going home.
Well, it's interesting because the law only applies to asylum seekers. The vast majority of people who come here and sneak in are not seeking asylum, and they can be sent back across the border immediately. Only 15% actually get a judicial hearing. But that's a significant number, and thus the backlog.
Particularly when you're talking about millions of people over the course of this time. So let me ask you, and I know this is going to fail under legal analysis, but why could you not make a decision, quote unquote, administratively, or the president's to say, the only way you can get asylum is go through a port of entry, correct?
Yes.
You have crossed the border illegally. That's every point in between ports of entry. Therefore, prima facie, absolutely in front of your face, is the fact that this person was not truly seeking asylum, or they would have gone through a port of entry, and therefore you are subject to immediate, expedited deportation.
Non-asylum seekers are subject to policy, not law, which the president is dealing with in a very strong way.
Doing that lawyer thing.
But asylum seekers, by congressional act, a law, are entitled to a hearing. That's the problem.
So we've got two problems.
You got Congress.
You got Congress, and you've got the other fools involved.
The civil rights lawyers. Yeah, those are the two problems.
I thought you said they didn't have standing.
Well, but they managed to get standing
because they find another Obama judge.
Once ICE detains, the civil rights lawyers gain access, and that's the problem. Don't detain; just escort them to the border.
Okay.
Unless they're seeking asylum, and then by law they're entitled to a hearing.
But can't you make the decision administratively that if they're not at a port of entry, they're not seeking asylum? Why? I mean, it's on its face. It doesn't make sense.
Well, that would again require an act of Congress, because
that requires an act of Congress.
If an individual is seeking asylum and they are already here, if they slip through the border and they're here and they say, I want asylum, they're entitled under law to a judicial proceeding.
You know, President,
I didn't make the law.
Well, there you go, bragging. Man, I got to tell you, the president's frustration is paramount.
Oh, it is
manifest. And by the way, everyone, if they do not understand, it is time to get rhinos out of the Republican Party and to get behind this president so that common sense can prevail and the national interest be served. It's that straightforward, and that's it.
Just look at our discussion here. It underscores that the immigration law is a mess. It's a mess.
I think that's what I said.
And it needs to be fixed.
I think I even said how to do it. Elect Republicans instead of these rhinos. All right. Good to see you, Greg. Thanks.
Good to see you, Lou.
I think. Thanks. That's so annoying. Up next, President Trump says we should deport illegal immigrants without a court hearing. We'll take up his battle to make America safe. Once again, Mark Simone joins us. We're awaiting the start of the president's rally in South Carolina. Weather holding up the president in Air Force One. We'll be bringing you live the president's arrival just as soon as he gets to West Columbia, South Carolina. Can't wait. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Force One has landed in Columbia, South Carolina. He has been held up by inclement weather, as they say. A storm, a rainstorm. You can see a pretty nasty-looking sky out there still, and some pretty amazing tarmac as well. That we threw in just as a bonus for all of you watching this. Joining us now, social media stars, President Trump's most loyal supporters, Diamond and Silk, joining us tonight, and great to have you back on the show with us. Diamond and Silk, good to see you. We're going to be going to the president just as soon as he arrives at Airport High School in West Columbia, South Carolina. It is great to see you both, and thanks so much for being here. I want to start out with just talking with Greg Jarrett earlier about what the president's frustration. I mean, I'm sitting here just getting a little more than anxious myself, listening to the nonsense that's built on our border that absolutely serves not the national interest, but the interest of people who are not even U.S. citizens. Diamond, what do you think?
You know, I find it appalling with the hypocrisy on the left, how Obama had those children wrapped in foil and in cages, and no one said anything about it. And President Trump is following the same law that Obama followed, and now everybody want to have a hissy fit. And now everybody is concerned about the children. Well, you know, we just visit the inner cities of Detroit. What about those children?
That's right.
Because we saw something so devastating that, okay, we need to start paying attention to what's going on here in America with the American people instead of illegal aliens.
That's right.
Yeah, as many as 20% of the kids in this country live below the poverty line, depending on whichever measurement you want. And when you say everybody's concerned, but we know that they're not concerned. The fact is these are Democratic left-wing activists, and many of them paid for by the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable, Wall Street, the Koch brothers, to have their hissy fit. It's all political theatrics, and it's not about those 2,000 kids. It's not about the truth, or they would have included the truth, which was the situation was so much worse under President Obama. And there's just, and the national left-wing media, my gosh, there was a time they were supposed to be truth seekers. They were supposed to be the ones holding us to an independent, objective standard of reality. They now are complicit with the left and with the establishment elites.
Yeah, we call them the very fake news. They want you to, they want to take and sensationalize a story. And want to feed it to the American people and think we're supposed to believe them. We don't believe them. We don't believe the liberal ideology and what they're trying to do. This is all a political ploy for them to win an election using children that they really don't care about to win an election. And it's so sad and it's sick.
That's right.
You know, when you think about what we've witnessed in this country over the last few weeks, whether it's Stephen Miller, some of the president's closest advisor, Kirstjen Nielsen, the Department of Homeland Security Secretary, whether it's Sarah Sanders or Attorney General Pam Bondi down in Florida, being confronted by activists who are there to just make them as miserable and to be as aggravated as they can get them, seeking the opportunity to make them angry to the point that they react. Fortunately, none of them did. But it is a horrible thing that we're watching in this country because the left has become a bunch of they're thugs. This is mob nonsense.
Yeah. Lou, if I can just say that, you know, it's a difference between being confronted and being harassed.
Right.
You know, when I'm sitting there minding my own business and I'm eating food or I'm there with my family on my own private time, you don't get the right to come and confront me or harass me while I'm there with my family. That was wrong. And it's a time and there's a place for all things. And that was not the time and that was not the place.
No, right. You're exactly right. Harass is the better word. It's the shame is that this would happen in a public place at all. These are people serving the President of the United States, serving the people of Florida in the case of Pam Bondi. Who in the world do these folks think they are to do this? It's gotten ugly. It is and something's going to happen. Human nature being what it is, something's going to happen, and then the left will be so thrilled with itself. This is just an ugly thing that we haven't seen in our lifetimes.
But remember now, it wasn't just that long ago where Black people was unable to sit at the lunch counter. All from left-leaning liberals in the Democratic Party. That's what they pushed that kind of foolishness back then. Now look at what you see today. Left-leaning liberals hackling won't allow someone to eat their food at a table.
That's right.
Oh, this is the same script but different cast, baby. That's happening. And see, they walking around, they don't have hoods on no more.
That's right.
And they're showing their true colors. The Democratic Party, I tell you, they are showing us. And look at what Maxine Waters said. She's telling them, oh, go ahead on and harass them like that's okay. This is what they want to do. They want to manipulate, intimidate in order to dominate. That's right. What they're trying to do.
And as we're talking, ladies, the president has has walked down the steps of Air Force One, getting ready to move on to the site of tonight's rally, again at the Airport High School in West Columbia, South Carolina. And as you can see from the skies around the airport, they're having some pretty interesting weather that was severe enough to hold up the president's aircraft. Air Force One just landing moments ago and had been expected to be there in time for the president to begin speaking at the top of this hour, and obviously working right now to catch up as the president waves to the welcoming crowd there in Columbia, and just about ready to head to the venue for his speech. We're going to. I want to just very quickly, if we can, ask you what you think the solution is. What is the way to get forward on this and to introduce the idea to the left that they're going to have to be civil and respectful of the president, of elected officials? This is reaching a level now that is nasty, nasty stuff.
It's very nasty.
Yeah.
What the left is doing is very disrespectful. It's dangerous. It's dangerous for our government, for a congresswoman to tell people, Americans, to harass other Americans. That's almost
right.
like terrorism to me.
That's right.
You know, and see, people need to look at this here. They need to catch themselves. They need to calm themselves down. Let's talk about it so that we can solve these problems. But we know that the left is the party of obstructionists.
That's right.
They don't want to solve anything. They want to keep bickering.
And it's time to also get out of the stage of denial and come into acceptance. It is what it is. President Trump is the president of the United States, and we have to respect that. That's part of democracy. It's time to respect that and stop acting like fools.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with both of you. There is, though, the view that the left is engaged in a war while the right in this country thinks it's engaged in a debate. So long as the left is behaving like this, it's going to be very difficult to have a national conversation with all Americans. And as you suggest, that's unfortunate, and the left does need to understand how to correct their behavior. It's not a national problem. It's a problem of the left and their activists. It's squarely on them. Diamond and Silk, it's always great to see you, and we thank you for being with us and look forward to you rejoining us soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Great to see you. Thank you. And some great tweets indeed. So the president has also been busy, and he's talking about this very frustrating thing about joining in what is a 700,000 case backlog in the immigration courts. We are behaving like fools. And I don't know what, and I'll be very candid, I don't know what the solution is. There has to be at least administrative due process. And whatever the Congress has done, Congress has got to change. It's that simple.
Well, it's not going to be easy. I remember it was about 14 years ago. I was watching Lou Dobbs Tonight, and you used to do a segment every night called Broken Borders, and you started to talk about this. Right. And it really struck me how serious this problem is. The only country in the world without a border. And you kept talking about it. You kept this alive. And I thought what you thought. The Republicans will step in. The Democrats will step in. It started to dawn on me. This Congress is so bought off on both sides by, as you always say, the Chamber of Commerce, the Business Roundtable. They want that border
the Koch
wide
brothers,
open.
Wall Street, and the list goes on.
I didn't want to start listening because we only have an hour or so.
Right.
But
not tonight. We've got more tonight.
Well, Democrats love those cheap votes. Republicans love that cheap labor. I don't know how we're going to get this border closed unless we all take up a fund and hire our own lobbyists and get it done.
I take the president at his word, and I have great faith in his word. We've got to build a wall. We've got to secure the border because this is just such straightforward common sense and logic. If we cannot control our border, there is no way we can control immigration. It's that straightforward. And for anyone to pretend otherwise means that they have been bought off because there's no other explanation. Either the border is secure or folks on both sides are absolutely corrupt.
Yeah, and we love immigrants. Immigrants are the backbone of the country. We like legal immigrants. We love it done orderly. You know, it's fascinating. Liberals want the border wide open. Anybody can walk across, but they'll choose who can come into a restaurant. Yeah. There they want vetting. The border is wide open.
Well, you might extend that. I'm not sure, but many of those people crossing the border wouldn't want to throw all the Republicans out as well, out of the country, if we were to put it to a vote.
You know, there's two times Donald Trump is not Donald Trump. When it comes to the Department of Justice turning over those documents, I don't know why he holds back on that. He should be over there demanding it get done. And the other is the border. He's a builder. He's the world expert on building walls. Yeah. He should start the wall.
Yeah, and he keeps talking about, excuse me, he keeps talking about the border wall having been started with the $1.6 billion. You know, that's not entirely the case. The fact of the matter is that Paul Ryan made a point of not giving him money for the wall. That $1.6 billion is for rehabilitation, additional technology, and securing the border, certainly, but not for the absolute specific purpose of building that wall. And also, Paul Ryan made another great gesture. he reduced the size of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Fewer agents instead in funding under this most recent omnibus bill. It's appalling what this one man has done.
Well, if you had
this
a
president.
sincerity contest between Mitt Romney and Paul Ryan, nobody would win. So,
well, that's true. The people of Utah have a chance to show their discretion in their primary tomorrow.
I think the president should start the wall. Pick one of those prototypes, get ready. Even if you build 10 feet of it, build it, just so we can see that 10 feet sitting there unfinished. Just start it. And
that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
But, you know, one